So but that's kind of the overview of the Sheriff's Office in a nutshell. And we've done a lot of good things. I've got a great team of folks there. And it's just one of those things where you empower your employees. They will do great things. And all these folks have a lot of great ideas. And I listen to them. And that's the key, I believe, to success. We communicate. Everybody's free to have some ideas. I have a lot of ideas. Some of them are actually good. But we do it quite a bit as the time progresses, especially this first year, and try to reduce costs to the taxpayers and improve our services. So you'll see some other good things coming out as we move forward. So we go for that to answer any questions that you might have. I see some hands shooting up. Okay. Yes, sir.
Sheriff Katz, I'm a teacher, and we have a school resource officer in middle school, I understand that. But with all the current, like you said, the Sandy Hook and all the exposure to the dangers with the schools being vulnerable, do you foresee here in all counties in Georgia where teachers can exercise their right to carry in schools, or will that be pretty much confined to maybe a resource officer even in the elementary schools and all the schools? Or how do you see that kind of evolving here with the local legislation based on the climate?
Well, I think it's good if you had a school resource officer in each of those schools. Of course, that's my best answer to it. I think that would be great. But you know, when you have citizens out there, especially that's having any military training, as teachers, you know, getting them all on the same page of how to carry a weapon, how to store the weapon, safely handle it, I don't really have a problem with it. But you know, there needs to be a way where we have a baseline of education on how to handle that firearm. It's a great responsibility, especially in school. But of course, the best measure would be, in my opinion, of course, would be to have a school resource officer in every one. It's costly. Do we, as a community, do we want to incur that cost? But then you bear out the life of a child. So it's something that the people need to speak about. Yes, sir.
After you've hired a man and put him through the training course, what is the starting salary for the starting officers?
It's around $36,000. $36,000. It goes up from there. Clerks, their pay is around $22,000 roughly, and so there's a huge difference there. Now, after they get certified and they go up in ranks, of course, it goes up 5% after that. From basic patrol officer, you go to corporal, make 5%, or go to sergeant, make 5%. Yes, sir.
You have said that you would be defending Second Amendment rights. Obviously, that being a God-given right, as we have heard.
I've heard that.
I just wanted to clarify what your position is on that. If an unlawful regulation was passed as law, and was, to be enforced, would you de facto nullify that law by refusing to enforce it? And then the second part of that is, would you interpose yourself between anyone who attempted to enforce an unlawful regulation that would, for instance, take away arms from non-violent citizens?
Well, any infringement on the Second Amendment right, of course, I'm totally against. In talking with the other sheriffs of this state, that we've stood together, and you'll see us stand together. If, say, an executive order were to come down the line, we would, of course, fight that legally, and we would file an injunction and pursue it through the courts. Of course, with the federal court system, that would probably tie it up until an individual that imposed that executive order is probably out of office. But with that being said, I do not see an order like you're talking about. You're talking about where the federal government would come in and take weapons from the law-abiding citizens.
Right. Well, not necessarily that the federal government would come and just confiscate weapons, though of course that could happen. I think that we would be very close to that. I would think more just if any gun regulation was passed that was
Unconstitutional.
Unconstitutional, unduly restrictive.
Yeah.
If we had something like happened in New York and we were only allowed to carry 10 bullets, I think that would be obviously absurd. But the question specifically is, would you nullify that by refusing to enforce it? And would you interpose yourself by using arrest powers on somebody who did try to enforce something like that?
Of course, we follow the law, and
Right.
go the legal route.
So you're saying that you would, well, I think there's a difference between law as in, natural law, what government has a right to do, and the Constitution obviously being the law, and then regulation that is unlawful under the colors of law.
Yes, I understand.
Are you saying that you would enforce something that had the color of law, even if it was not in keeping with the Constitution? Is that your position?
If a law is passed, and we're a nation of laws, of course. Our very foundation is based on that. But I believe in our God-given constitutional rights, and I will always support and defend those. We will stand with the other sheriffs of this state, and we will not enforce any law that would infringe upon your constitutional rights. Now, with that being said, we're going to go through the legal process. I don't see, the federal government's not going to come into Hall County, if that's what you're talking about, and try to abuse or infringe upon any of your constitutional rights. I'm the sheriff. I run the law.
Well, not necessarily in guns, but I would say that they infringe on our constitutional rights every single day, in Hall County, the federal government does. But that, the original question would, I'm gathering that you would not nullify that by refusing to enforce it, and that you would not interpose it. Just suppose that federal forces did come into Georgia and said that they were going to start confiscating guns. Would you
There's a lot of
start
issues,
federal officers?
huge issues at that, right off the bat. So
I'm sorry?
that would be a huge the bat. The country would be at war. Is actually exactly what that is.
Well, yeah, without yielding the floor, Jimmy, if you'd like to ask a question.
Thank you. If I could just put just a little meat on that for an example. The Gun Control Act of, Evan's still here, 1934 and 1968 were unconstitutional violations. They clearly are infringements on rights that only the states maybe have power over, not the feds. They do now come in and collect up those guns if they're not registered. If I have a machine gun, which I have a legal God-given right to have, according to the Constitution, but according to this law passed that was in conflict with the Constitution, if they come after my machine gun, I think you should arrest them, not me.
Absolutely.
And that's where this color of law means nothing to me if it's just clearly a violation of the Constitution, which I consider both of those to be. So in that specific case, if I have a restricted gun, a short barrel shotgun, a gun that, repeatedly fires, whatever, will you look after my constitutional rights?
Certainly.
Or the government's color
I think,
of law?
as sheriff, of course, I have to enforce the laws for all people.
No, you don't. No. You're in
Let me finish.
Can I when we say law, it's your constitutional duty to defend our lives, which we defend with our guns. It's your duty to defend our morals, which the Lord said, if you don't have a sword, sell your shirt and buy a sword. You say that you want to defend our persons. Our persons are what we defend with our guns. Our health, we defend with our guns. You're not very healthy if someone shoots you and kills you. So, I would say that your primary constitutional duty under even the Georgia Constitution is to defend the right to bear arms. Even in the face of,
correct,
like we say, things that are the color of law. But I'm trying to understand. Would you enforce the color of law, or would you enforce the natural God-given constitutional standard of actual law? That's the real crux of the question.
Well, I have to enforce the laws that our society has determined. Now, as a group, I said a while ago, unity there is strength. Yes, if there is a law in the books that you, as a society or people, do not like, then you go to your representative and you have that law changed, enacted, or abolished, or what have you. That's what I believe in. Now, with that being said, of course, I'm sworn to uphold the law and enforce the law. And I don't know that I'm answering your question. I don't know if we can actually do that.
You're answering it wrong.
You are answering it. You're just not answering it quite in the same term. What you're saying, if I gather, you can just give me a yes or no, is that you're saying you would defend what I'm calling the color of law because you believe that the color of law is acceptable because it's what's passed by the legislature, regardless of whether or not it comports with the natural law and the Constitution. Is that correct?
I have to enforce the law. Now, with that being said, before a law goes into place, there should be a lot of other things. If there's a law that's determined unconstitutional, it shouldn't be passed to begin with. So that's where we come in as a people and stand up and not allow such laws to be placed. We determine what goes on.
Right, and I agree. Well, let me ask you this also. What would the body be in terms of the Constitution that would determine whether or not a law is unconstitutional?
What is the body?
Yeah, who would make that determination? Because I would say that as the enforcer of the law, it's your responsibility to determine, well, I mean, I would personally say that even these carry permits are not constitutional, they represent infringements, and they're unlawful. I should not have to ask the government for permission to carry a weapon, and I certainly shouldn't have to pay for it. I mean, that's, disenfranchising people who don't have the means to pay. I mean, that's as bad as a poll tax, in terms of infringing people's rights based on their wealth. So, I would think that as the sheriff, it would be your duty to uphold the actual, natural, God-given law and our right to bear arms regardless of whether or not the legislature happens to say something to the contrary.
And you're talking about the U.S. Constitution, correct?
Well, and the state constitution, yeah.
Okay.
State constitution says the same thing on the right to bear
Yes,
arms, the federal constitution does.
Yes.
Now, let me keep
That's
this
not
one
true.
right, young lady.
Wait, what, I'm
Founding
sorry,
fathers believes in this, if I have done no harm to you, your private property, I haven't committed a crime. Now, I'm proud to be a 90% jury nullified. Meaning, that prosecutor didn't prove to me beyond any doubt at all that his victim was guilty of the crime he was accused of, he or she. I have to tell, I ain't done some divorce cases where the woman didn't take a man for everything he had, she didn't take it for nothing. But, don't you read this when you get a chance? I'd like you to read it right now so everybody can hear it. If you would, do you mind?
I'm sorry, I can't read your.
I would like you to read it.
Come on, Dave.
Let Joe Mark Pyle read it. It says, would you mind doing it?
No, come on down.
Yeah, I'll put out my shirt over.
No. Yeah, you already got a stain on it. I'll be glad to read.
He just gave me an order. Sorry.
Hands on the wall.
Sorry. Now I can't read it. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor so help me God. And I took a similar oath, actually 4 oaths.
He said, I'm the state of Georgia.
Constitution of the United States and of the state of Georgia. Okay.
I'm at the religion. Who are the religion?
Who was malicious? I'm not voting.
The religion. Several religions. We think of the religion.
Okay.
We are, in case you need, in case you decide you can do without, they take those vacant now. You need some serious help. So call us. We'll get called on. Because you're gonna keep hiring vacants, that won't be well, then we come and violate our constitutional rights.
No, sir. Not at all.
Yes, you do.
I think we're close to finishing, Sheriff Couch, if we could. I'm gathering that the answer is no on the de facto nullification by refusing to enforce laws. My other question was, would you arrest, for instance, federal officials if they were to come in and infringe on our Second Amendment rights? I mean, you said, well, if that was to happen, then we would be at war. Perhaps that's the case, but I mean, in terms of if we weren't, if we had a situation like, the federal government raiding something that they consider,
There's
different
so,
situation.
yeah, and there's so many checks and balances in place on the federal level, especially on the federal level. I know the federal officers that are here in this county, there's 3 of them, that's it. And I know that it's easier, I'll tell you this is kind of a long drawn out thing, but it's easier for a sheriff's deputy to go and get a search warrant and based on probable cause, apply to a neutral and detached magistrate judge with evidence produced that we could go into someone's home. The federal government has such a higher level, they have to actually go through an assistant attorney, U.S. attorney. They have to sign off on that. It goes to one of their supervisors, and then before it goes to a magistrate judge. And there's so many guidelines in place there. Having the federal government come in and just start taking people's property, and there's just so much there.
And I understand, but just in terms of hypothetical, because it's going to help us.
Well, we could what if anyway.
Well, right, but it's going to help us understand your mindset rather than looking
Actually,
at
let me provide an example, because it has happened. It happened in New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina.
Thank you.
They went in and seized arms, and I think the question is, if we ever had a situation like that occur here as the sheriff, Does that help?
Yeah, that does help. I mean, that's a perfect example. Or, I mean, just in terms of a hypothetical, if we happen to have a horrible tyrant in the White House who didn't really respect the rule of law as we all do, and, you know,
Like I was talking about
it would be very easy for anyone to use force to step over the checks and balances, and, you know, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission in those kind of cases. So I guess my question is, yeah, in a situation like what Craig mentioned, or just in a hypothetical situation with federal that, would you arrest federal officers?
If a federal officer came here and violated our law, and violated the Constitution or anything like that, any of our laws, yeah, I would have a duty to sworn to uphold the law, and I would do just that. I'm here to tell you, and I speak from a personal level, 30 years law enforcement experience. I know the federal officers, I know the state officers. It's just not going to happen. These guys, they live here, they have families here, and they know the law, and they're good Americans. They're not going to follow something that is totally unconstitutional. This won't.
Okay.
But
Let's spread around
I'm really close.
Please.
I appreciate your time, but you're monopolizing.
I don't mean to monopolize, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you.
We need to move on.
Sheriff, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I just read it yesterday. Senate Bill 1876, okay, authorizes power for the United States military to work in conjunction with civilian law enforcement to enact rendition within the continent of the United States. It lists Al-Qaeda, terrorist groups, but it's so broad that it also lists belligerent individuals. My question
We're all in trouble.
My question is that seeing how Senate Bill 1876 passed the Senate 93 to 7, passed the Congress, passed the House, and has been signed into law by the President, so it is federal law. My question is, speak to your jurisdictional authority to stop somebody, okay, who wasn't an active agent against the United States government and could actually prevent them from being held through rendition in either the U.S., Canada, or Mexico.
There's a young lady been.
Is that all you wanted to know?
What's the answer?
You know, I thought this big boy already did, said what she wanted to say.
Okay.
But what's the answer?
Gerald, I don't know whether you recall or not, but I do. Prior to the primary, you and I met in McDonald's.
Yes.
Could you let him answer that before?
Do what?
Yeah,
Yes,
there's
question.
a question to the sheriff on the floor that he hasn't had a chance to answer.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Not a problem, we'll come back to it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Senate bill. That's why I wrote it down, and I'll research that so I can probably talk about it in a more educated fashion. But in having, the sheriff has total authority as the man of the people elected to that office in that county. I can speak from experience. I have seen it firsthand. Can't go into a lot of details about the nature of the incident itself. But the FBI wanted to come here in Hall County and investigate a particular situation. It would have been, I'm going to dance around this because there's some sensitive information here. It's to bring a criminal element that we did not have here in this county in order to catch a criminal element from somewhere way off. And guess what? The sheriff said, no, you will not do that. You will not do that. And you know what? They didn't, because the sheriff has the final say-so. Just like with the state patrol, Georgia State Patrol. There are some counties in the state of Georgia that the sheriff, for whatever reason, be it personal or professional, will not allow the state patrol to patrol their highways. Okay, so you see there's a system in place there. You don't always see it, but it operates that way, where the sheriff has that authority. And with that being said, of course, going back, it's an ambiguous statement, but of course I will protect your civil rights, I will protect your constitutional rights, I will do all those things. I'm here to enforce the law of the people. We determine what that law is through our process. And we're a nation built on those laws, and I'll do my job. So I know that's kind of a roundabout way, but I'll need to research this, and if you want to talk further about it, I'll be more than happy to discuss it with you. Yes, Mary?
I think what we're wanting to hear from you, and we're just not hearing it,
Okay.
is you will draw a line in the sand and say, not in my county. If, when, whatever, not in my county, there's a line being drawn. I'd like for you, I think that's what we want to hear from
Yeah.
you.
Well, in my mind, that's what I am saying. When as a sheriff, I have that responsibility, and that is my duty. Yes, I will defend this county to the very end, if it even sacrifices my life. I have served here for 30 years, more than 30 years, and I believe in the 4 oaths of office that I took as sheriff, and each and every single one of them stated that I will protect the citizens, I'll defend the Constitution, and all of them ended with "so help me God." And I mean just exactly that. If there comes a situation where a line has to be drawn in the sand, yes, I will stand there. So I hope that answers your question.
And if they cross the line, will you accept help from outside forces? Will you request outside forces from other sheriff's departments?
We can, in fact, yes, we do.
Would they be able to be here quickly enough to provide those services?
I can tell you that the sheriffs of the state of Georgia stand together. That I do know. At the conference, the majority of us was there. The ones that weren't, that we communicated through emails, and we stay in touch. We're very much concerned about all the things that you're concerned about. So we're staying very cognizant of that, very on top of it. So I assure you, if a sheriff in this state has a problem, the other sheriffs will come to that aid. I guarantee it. So, yes, sir. Now,
If you recall, prior to the primary, you run for sheriff. You and I met at McDonald's for an hour or so.
you never bought me a meal either.
I didn't think
No,
of it.
no.
And we went over a lot of issues.
Yes, sir.
One, boarding in inmates, the cost of the sheriff's department, how you would reduce costs, and the Second Amendment. And as far as I can tell, you've lived up to every one of them.
Thank you, sir. I
If
will.
you didn't, I'd start hollering.
Well, yes, sir.
But anyway, I just want to thank you personally, because it was just you and I, one group, sitting there drinking a cup of coffee. We agreed to meet there.
Yes, sir.
And about an hour or so, and thank you for living up to your commitment.
I will continue. When I was running for office, all the things that I said that I would do, I'm going to do every single one of them. Got a lot of them already done. We've got some more coming. Yes, Mary.
I would like to echo that. I really appreciate all the things, your presentation today, and all the money that you are saving us as taxpayers, or that sort of thing. I think that's a great avenue that if the other sheriff was doing it, I didn't know, but I appreciate that you do that.
Well, thank you. Actually, a lot of the other sheriffs, after we put that out, they liked our page, and of course, I've had several of them say, "Hey, do you mind if I use some of this on mine?" I'm by all means. It's not copyrighted, so I'll make everything better. But that was one of the other initiatives that did. This is what we need. You can't have a sheriff who's locked away in his office, or you can't ever reach by email or telephone. You got to be able to talk to that person. And if you have a concern, I'll always listen. You'll always have an ear. Now, there may be some things that we disagree on, and there may be some things that we agree on. That's just the way things are. I'm going to tell you where I stand on it, and hopefully make it clear. But I work for you. When I was running for office, I said, I want you to hire me to be your sheriff, and I still look at it that way. If I don't do what I say, or I don't do a good job, then you need to fire me and get me out of office. But I don't intend to lose my job just yet, so I'm going to continue to serve you
Full
very well.
disclosure, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I sent the sheriff the video that has been on the internet for a couple of days now from Temple, Texas, where 2 officers disarmed a veteran. He caught it on video, and I wanted the sheriff's comments on that. For all of you that may or may not have seen it, he was a veteran walking on a 10-mile hike with his son, who's 15 years old, and the son was trying to earn his hiking merit badge. That's why he had the camera. That's why he was on the hike. It was a rural area in Texas where rattlesnakes, wild boar, and coyote, maybe, some other vicious animal are rampant. So he had a weapon with him, a rifle. It happens to be black, so that apparently makes him real scary looking. So this rifle was attached to him with a sling, and he was walking along, and prior to the video, of course, this is the one man's story, the police officers are not releasing the dash cam or making any comments. So anyway, they disarmed him. One problem I had is they muzzle swept him as they disarmed his pistol from him and pretty much pointed it at the back of his head very dangerously. Anyway, I would like to ask you first for your comments, and if you have any specific training for your officers on open carry, concealed carry, how they address someone that they see somewhere who's open carrying. We're not dangerous. We're just as dangerous as an officer who's open carrying. And my second part of that is, do you have any tips for us who are open carrying and get, you know, those funny looks and sort of things?
Okay. I'll try to answer all that.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
all right. But yeah,
That was an AR-15, that's over.
It was. He had an AR-15. He was on a sling that had combat rated.
It's Armalite, it was not a Bushmaster.
Yes. There you go. Couldn't even specify. Then he had a 45 tucked in his waist now. I don't remember if it was on right or left. But anyway, the officers get a call about an armed person walking down the side of the road in Temple, Texas. So when and it doesn't show on this video the first part of the contact. It just shows after he's, you know, the guys in front of the car, and you see the gun on his sling, and then the interaction between the officers from that standpoint. So I don't know about the dash cam. I would really like to see it. A host of issues right off the bat, and I'll start off with this. You know, as a citizen, yes, you can carry a rifle, you can do all those things, but if you start walking down the highway, you're going to get attention, and more likely somebody's going to call, and you're going to have a contact with the police or a deputy or a state officer or whatever. That's going to happen. But it's all in communication. The officers did a very horrible job communicating what they wanted and what they were trying to find out. And now on the other side of the coin, of course, he ramped it up, you know. And so there was a huge issue right off the bat. Both sides were angry. This didn't come to any peaceful resolution. And then he went to jail. That's going to be a huge problem, because those officers, in my opinion, yeah, they're going to be sued, and rightfully so, because they did not know the law or did not be able to explain it enough that they got to that point. Shouldn't have happened. Now, do officers have the right or the authority to detain an individual based on a call like that? Yeah, they do. It's investigative detention. But there's many different ways that you can approach that. They also have a right to, or excuse me, I keep saying right, but authority to make sure that scene is safe for everyone concerned while they're doing that investigation. I didn't see that. I just saw a lot of standing around, and it was very argumentative, very, very unprofessional. Now, that was my views on that. Now, you asked me about what steps we were taking here, I believe, with our officers. Yes. Communication is a huge, huge issue. In being able to have an officer communicate instructions or whatever to a citizen and have that free flow of communication. In society, we see a lot of the officers now coming in that they're good at texting, you know, good at emailing and all this stuff, but they lack this skill. And so we kind of have to go back to the drawing board and actually teaching people how to talk. So that's some of the classes that we have going on now. Now, with that, with the patrol officers, yeah, we have a component where we just had a firearms safety course for citizens. We teamed up with Doug Collins just a few weeks ago. Now, with those same laws, we have that same instruction on what citizens can do, where they can carry, where they can carry, all those things for the officers. Because I don't want to have one of those issues like you saw in that video here in Hall County. Could it happen? Yes, but I'm taking steps to prevent that. I don't want to see that. And it was inexcusable. So, yes.
If I can narrow down on that just a little bit, you're saying in the course of an investigation, the officer has the right to take away the person's liberty to move. And basically kidnap them for the time duration
it's not kidding.
Of the interrogation.
No.
If they can't leave, you know, they're arrested.
Well, okay.
You're saying they can arrest the person's progress.
They can stop that movement
without
temporarily.
probable cause of a crime.
No, you've got
Now, some lady calls and
suspicion.
says, this guy's walking down the street with a gun.
Yes.
You're saying that's a probable cause of a crime?
No, let me finish. That's a reasonable suspicion that there may be a crime that you need to check into. Probable cause is where you make the establish, hey, I'm gonna take you to jail. We're not at that yet. That's over here. We're looking at, there's a suspicious activity that we need to check into. Okay, did this guy, put yourself in the police officer's position now, okay? I know that's gonna be, put that hat on. All right. So you get a call on your radio and you're driving down the road, hey, suspicious person walking with a gun on the highway. You don't see that a lot. You really don't. Especially when it's combat ready, you got the sling and all this, you don't see it. Well, you didn't used to. But the thing about it is, what do you do now as a police officer? What do you do? Okay, do you know why that individual's walking? Did he just come from your house and steal that gun? Okay, and now you may have a crime that you don't know. Is he irate? Is he going next door to the next business down? He's mad at his wife, he's gonna kill everybody in the company? Or is there a playground down the street where he's gonna shoot a bunch of kids? Public safety comes to mind. You have to ensure that public safety, you make that investigative detention. Yes, are you stopping that person's movement? But yes, you have to have that careful balance of constitutional rights placed with public safety, and that's the operation.
So we have a right to carry as long as police don't know about it, because then they're gonna harass you.
No.
That's what you just said.
This is what we're saying.
It's not what he said. For doing something out of constitutional rights to you, I don't understand that.
See what, it's 8:45 almost. And I'm not sure what time we have to vacate the premises, but I'd say at least by 9 o'clock. So this will be the last exchange.
We can all come back to my house.
Anybody's interested can go to his house and get the records out of the meeting. So,
I'll have to take a paycheck.
we need to finish this little exchange right here, and then we're gonna call it quits.
So,
Anything that you want to?
well, I was gonna say, where do you draw that line? Okay, yes, we want to preserve the Second Amendment. Yes, we do. But does that mean that we exclude everything else? That we, as a society, can't, why do we have police officers to begin with? Should we not just abolish the whole system?
Yeah, probably.
So, then okay, Somalia, that would be a perfect example. I want a lawless society, where there's no government involvement and you can have all the guns you want.
We don't need a police state to enforce the law, Sheriff County.
Yeah, well, no, it's to ensure public safety. I don't want to have a police state. I don't want one either.
Well, but what about, the Constitution says that you can't arrest somebody, you can't even search somebody unless you have a warrant, and no warrant should issue without a probable cause, a suspicious person. I mean, for goodness sake, you'll have to stop Edwin every time he breathes.